There's a 2-hour window every single evening that almost nobody thinks about when it comes to their kidneys. And yet, what happens in that window can matter more than almost anything you do earlier in the day. While you sleep, your kidneys don't rest. They keep filtering your blood, keep balancing your fluids, keep clearing out the waste your body produced over the last 16 hours. And what you eat in the hour or two before you close your eyes has a direct effect on how smoothly that overnight process goes. Most of what you hear about kidney health is about restriction. Cut the salt, watch the potassium, limit the phosphorus. All of that has its place. But there's a piece of the conversation that almost never gets airtime. What you can actively add to your evening to support your kidneys while they do their quiet overnight work. Tonight, we're going through 8 fruits that fit comfortably into a kidney-conscious diet, each one chosen because it brings real, documented support, without the potassium load that makes so many other fruits complicated for people managing kidney health. And stay with me through the 8th one because it comes with a catch that most videos on this topic leave out entirely. A catch you genuinely need to know before you reach for it. Where are you watching from? Drop it in the comments below. I read every single one. Before we get into the fruits themselves, it helps to understand why nighttime specifically matters so much for kidney function. Because once you understand the mechanism, every recommendation that follows will make a lot more sense. Your kidneys are 2 organs, roughly the size of your fist, sitting just below your rib cage on either side of your spine. Together, they filter an enormous volume of blood every day, removing waste products, clearing excess fluid, and returning clean, balanced blood back into circulation. Potassium is one of the nutrients most closely tied to kidney health, and it's a genuinely two-sided story. The body needs potassium. It helps your nerves fire correctly, helps your muscles contract, and keeps your heart beating in a steady rhythm. But when kidney function is reduced, the body can lose its ability to clear excess potassium efficiently, and levels can climb to a point that becomes dangerous. That's the tension at the center of kidney-friendly eating. Here's where it gets interesting. Some of the richest sources of antioxidants and anti-inflammatory compounds in the fruit world, things like bananas, oranges, kiwi, and avocado, also happen to be higher in potassium. So they're not automatically off the table for everyone, but they do require more careful portioning for people managing kidney disease. The 8 fruits we're covering tonight sit on the other side of that tension. They deliver real antioxidant and anti-inflammatory value, real fiber, real vitamins, without the potassium burden that makes the higher potassium fruits trickier to manage. That's what makes them well-suited to an evening routine. There's also a sleep and blood pressure connection worth understanding early because it comes up again and again tonight. Normally, blood pressure is supposed to dip during sleep, a pattern sometimes called nocturnal dipping. When sleep is fragmented or poor quality, that natural dip doesn't happen the way it should, and the kidneys end up filtering blood under sustained higher pressure for hours at a stretch. Over months and years, that adds up. So anything that genuinely supports better sleep quality is, indirectly, supporting your kidneys too. With that foundation in place, let's go through the 8 fruits one at a time. The first fruit on this list might be the single most fitting choice for a bedtime routine of anything we'll cover tonight, and it's the one with the most specific connection to sleep itself. Tart cherries, sometimes labeled sour cherries or Montmorency cherries, contain natural plant compounds, including a form of melatonin, the same hormone your body produces to regulate its sleep-wake cycle. They're also considered a low-potassium fruit choice, generally suitable across the different stages of kidney disease, with low sodium and low phosphorus content as well. Here's why the timing matters so specifically. We already talked about nocturnal blood pressure dipping and how disrupted sleep interferes with it. Research on tart cherry consumption, including small studies looking specifically at older adults with sleep difficulty, has suggested that the compounds in tart cherries, including tryptophan and various phytochemicals, may support better sleep quality by reducing inflammation and oxidative stress. Some of that research has reported improvements in insomnia symptoms that were comparable to other commonly used natural sleep aids. Better sleep, in turn, supports healthier nighttime blood pressure regulation, which means less sustained pressure stress on the delicate filtering vessels inside your kidneys overnight. That's a real documented chain of benefit, even if no single food is a cure-all on its own. What to actually do with this? A half cup to 1 cup of tart cherries or a small glass of unsweetened tart cherry juice, roughly 30 to 60 minutes before bed. One important distinction here: sour or Montmorency cherries are the low potassium variety we're talking about. Sweet cherries are a different nutritional profile entirely and a separate consideration. The second fruit barely needs an introduction because it's one of the most talked about foods in all of modern nutrition science, but it happens to line up especially well with kidney health specifically. Blueberries offer fiber, vitamin C, vitamin K, and a concentrated dose of antioxidants, all while sitting comfortably in the low potassium category in a typical half-cup serving. They're also low in sodium and low in phosphorus, which is part of why they're commonly recommended as suitable across the different stages and treatment types associated with kidney disease. The specific compounds doing the heavy lifting here are anthocyanins, the same family of anti-inflammatory plant pigments we'll see again in a couple of the other fruits tonight, just in different proportions and with slightly different effects. Some research has linked regular berry consumption, several servings a week, to meaningful reductions in cardiovascular risk factors. That overlap matters more than it might seem at first. Cardiovascular disease and kidney disease share a lot of the same underlying inflammatory pathways, and the two conditions often progress together, especially in people over 60. So when a single food supports both heart health and kidney health through the same mechanism, without adding potassium burden, that's about as efficient as a dietary choice can get. What to actually do? A half cup of blueberries makes a good bedtime portion. Fresh, frozen, or even freeze-dried versions all seem to hold on to their antioxidant content reasonably well, so whichever is easiest for you to keep on hand works fine. The third fruit on the list is one of the sweetest, most naturally enjoyable options here, and also one of the safest from a potassium standpoint. Strawberries bring vitamin C, manganese, folate, and antioxidants to the table, all while staying quite low in calories. They also sit near the bottom of the potassium scale among common fruits, alongside being low in sodium and phosphorus, which is part of why they're often considered suitable even for people managing more advanced kidney disease under a stricter dietary plan. That very low potassium content is genuinely significant. It puts strawberries among the safest fruit choices available for people who need to track their potassium intake closely, including some people on dialysis. There's also an oxidative stress angle worth mentioning. Chronic oxidative stress is considered one of the underlying drivers behind kidney disease progression over time, and some research has suggested that regular strawberry intake may support the body's natural antioxidant defenses. Strawberries also contain small amounts of natural compounds related to melatonin production, not at the concentration you'd get from tart cherries, but enough to make a light, sweet evening snack a reasonable part of a wind-down routine. What to actually do? A half cup of fresh or frozen strawberries, rinsed and kept whole just before eating, so you get the most out of them. If you want something a little more filling, pairing them with a small amount of plain, unsweetened yogurt makes a satisfying and still kidney-conscious bedtime snack. The fourth fruit is probably the most universally available option on this entire list, and it's also one of the most underrated. A whole apple, eaten with the peel on, is rich in fiber and antioxidants while staying low in potassium, phosphorus, and sodium. In fact, most of the antioxidant benefit lives specifically in the peel itself. Eating the peel can give you several times more antioxidant value than eating just the flesh. Apples are generally considered a safe, versatile choice across kidney conditions and treatment types. For people managing both kidney health and blood sugar concerns, a combination that becomes increasingly common as people move into their 60s and beyond, the fiber in a whole apple slows how quickly sugar is absorbed into the bloodstream. That helps reduce the kind of overnight blood sugar swings that can complicate kidney function over time. There's also a kidney stone connection worth knowing. Adequate hydration paired with certain dietary compounds, including malic acid, which apples contain, is thought to contribute to a more alkaline urine environment, generally considered more protective against the most common type of kidney stone than a more acidic environment would be. What to actually do? 1 medium apple, peel on, eaten slowly as part of your evening wind down. If you enjoy cinnamon, a light dusting, Ceylon cinnamon specifically, pairs well and adds its own modest blood sugar supportive benefit on top of the apple's natural fiber. The fifth fruit surprises a lot of people because grapes don't usually come to mind when someone thinks kidney friendly. Grapes are generally grouped among the lower potassium fruit choices, alongside apples, blueberries, and a few others we're covering tonight, in contrast to higher potassium fruits like bananas, melons, oranges, and kiwi. The compound that gets the most attention in grapes, especially red and purple varieties, is resveratrol, a polyphenol concentrated mostly in the skin, alongside the flavonoids responsible for that deep red or purple color. Those same flavonoids have been studied for a possible role in supporting healthy blood clotting patterns, which is a relevant angle for kidney patients, who often carry a somewhat elevated cardiovascular risk profile alongside their kidney concerns. There's also a very practical use case here. Many people managing kidney disease are on some form of fluid restriction, which can make it genuinely hard to find a satisfying, cool, refreshing snack that doesn't add much fluid volume. Frozen grapes solve that problem nicely. They take longer to eat, feel hydrating and cooling in the moment, and deliver real antioxidant value without adding meaningful liquid to your daily total. What to actually do? A small handful, roughly half a cup, of red or purple grapes as an evening snack. If you're on a fluid restriction, freeze them first and eat them slowly. Red and purple grapes generally carry more of the beneficial pigment compounds than green grapes do. The sixth fruit might be the highest fiber option, pound for pound, of anything on this list. And fiber turns out to matter for kidney health in ways that go beyond just digestion. A half-cup serving of raspberries delivers a notably higher fiber content than most other fruits in a comparable portion, while still sitting in the low potassium category that makes it a reasonable evening choice. That fiber matters through two separate pathways. First, fiber feeds the beneficial bacteria living in your gut, and those bacteria produce compounds that help reduce systemic inflammation, the same chronic low-grade inflammation that's increasingly linked to kidney disease progression. A healthier gut environment is something kidney researchers have been paying closer attention to in recent years. Second, fiber slows down how quickly your body absorbs other nutrients eaten around the same time, including phosphorus from whatever else you had at dinner. Since phosphorus management is one of the trickier parts of eating well with kidney disease, a fiber-rich fruit eaten alongside or shortly after a meal can create a small but genuinely meaningful buffering effect. What to actually do? A half cup of fresh or frozen raspberries as an evening snack. Frozen raspberries tend to be more affordable and hold on to their nutritional value well. They also pair nicely with Tart cherries if you want to combine a couple of these benefits into one small bowl. The seventh fruit tends to catch people off guard because it's tropical, it's acidic, and it just doesn't fit most people's mental picture of a kidney-friendly food. And yet, fresh pineapple is generally considered a low-potassium fruit choice, which makes it one of the more approachable tropical options for anyone watching their potassium intake closely. What makes pineapple particularly interesting is bromelain, a natural enzyme found specifically in fresh pineapple that has been studied for its anti-inflammatory properties. Since inflammation plays such a central role in kidney disease progression, any naturally occurring anti-inflammatory compound that fits comfortably within a kidney-conscious diet is worth knowing about. There's a modest sleep angle here, too. Fresh pineapple contains small amounts of tryptophan, the same amino acid that eventually gets converted into serotonin and melatonin in the body. It's not a sedative by any means, but it can contribute to a more relaxed, natural wind-down feeling as part of an evening routine. What to actually do? A half cup of fresh pineapple, cut into chunks or spears, as a light evening snack. Fresh pineapple holds on to meaningfully more of that bromelain enzyme than canned pineapple does, since canning typically involves heat processing that breaks the enzyme down. Fresh is the better choice whenever it's available to you. This is the one I asked you to stick around for, and the catch is genuinely worth understanding, because most videos covering cranberries and kidney health leave out two important pieces of context. Cranberries have been associated with urinary tract and kidney health for a long time, and there is real research behind part of that connection. Certain compounds in cranberries appear to make it harder for some bacteria to stick to the bladder wall, which is the proposed mechanism behind their most talked about benefit, helping reduce the likelihood of recurrent urinary tract infections in people who've had them before. But here's the first important nuance. Cranberry products do not treat an existing urinary tract or kidney infection. The evidence supports a modest preventive role for some people, not a treatment for an active infection. If you suspect you already have an infection, that calls for a conversation with your doctor, not a glass of cranberry juice. The second nuance is where the actual catch lives. Raw cranberries are extremely tart, and almost nobody eats them plain. Most cranberry products marketed for health, juice cocktails, sweetened dried cranberries, flavored supplements, contain a substantial amount of added sugar, and sugar-sweetened beverages, more broadly, have been linked to increased kidney disease risk. So a cranberry juice cocktail marketed as good for your kidneys can, in its sweetened form, work against the very organ it claims to support. The real benefit lives specifically in the unsweetened whole cranberry, not in most of the sweetened products actually sitting on store shelves. What to actually do, if you want to include cranberries? Choose unsweetened 100% cranberry juice, unsweetened dried cranberries in small portions, or raw or frozen whole cranberries. Skip the juice cocktails and the sweetened supplements. And one more caution worth mentioning. If you take a blood-thinning medication like warfarin, mention regular cranberry use to your pharmacist, since there's some inconsistent evidence about a possible interaction. Now that we've gone through all 8, here's a simple way to bring a few of them together tonight. Take a small bowl and combine a half cup of tart cherries, a handful of blueberries, and 3 or 4 fresh strawberries. That single bowl brings together sleep-supportive compounds and nocturnal blood pressure support from the cherries, anti-inflammatory anthocyanins from the blueberries, vitamin C and antioxidant support from the strawberries, and a potassium load low enough to fit comfortably across most stages of kidney-conscious eating. No supplements, no complicated preparation, nothing to buy beyond the produce aisle. Just 3 well-suited fruits in a bowl, eaten 30 to 60 minutes before bed. If you'd like to add a liquid component, a small glass of unsweetened tart cherry juice alongside this bowl rounds things out nicely. Every fruit we've covered tonight is generally considered kidney-conscious in broad terms, but broad terms are not the same as your individual terms. If you're managing a more advanced stage of chronic kidney disease, your potassium and phosphorus limits may be tight enough that even these lower potassium fruits need to be counted carefully within a specific daily allowance. A kidney dietitian is genuinely the right person to translate any general guidance like this into what actually fits your own numbers. In earlier stages of kidney disease, potassium restriction usually isn't necessary unless blood levels are already elevated. In later stages, a doctor or dietitian may recommend a more careful approach. If you're over 60 and haven't had your kidney function checked recently, that's a reasonable thing to bring up at your next appointment. A basic blood panel that includes creatinine, estimated filtration rate, and electrolyte levels gives you a clear starting picture of where things stand. Let me tell you about a patient I'll call Eleanor, 76 years old, managing early-stage chronic kidney disease alongside ongoing sleep trouble and a pattern of recurring urinary tract infections. When we sat down and went through her diet together, Eleanor had quietly cut out almost all fruit. It came from a reasonable instinct. She'd heard potassium and kidney mentioned together so often that she assumed avoiding fruit entirely was the safest path. But in doing that, she'd also cut out one of the richest available sources of antioxidants, anti-inflammatory compounds, and gentle sleep support from her evenings. We rebuilt her evening routine together, guided by the same kind of lower potassium fruit thinking we've covered tonight. Tart cherries before bed for sleep and nighttime blood pressure support, blueberries and strawberries a few evenings a week for antioxidant coverage, unsweetened whole cranberries a couple of times a week, specifically for the modest UTI prevention benefit. Within about 6 weeks, Eleanor told me her sleep had noticeably improved. Her recurring infections, which had been showing up almost monthly, hadn't returned in over 2 months. And at her next quarterly kidney function check, her numbers had held steady, a reasonable, realistic goal at her stage. What stayed with me most was something she said at that follow-up visit. She told me the biggest surprise wasn't the lab numbers. It was how different it felt to be adding something good to her routine, instead of only ever being told what to take away. That shift from restriction to addition made the whole thing far easier for her to stick with long term. Everything in this video is educational information, drawn from general nutrition and kidney health guidance, and it is not personalized medical advice. It isn't a replacement for the specific recommendations your own kidney dietitian or doctor has given you. If you're managing advanced chronic kidney disease, currently on dialysis, taking a blood thinner, or have been given specific dietary limits by your healthcare provider, please confirm any of tonight's suggestions with your care team before making them a regular habit. So here's what tonight actually looks like in practice. A half cup to 1 cup of Tart cherries, sour or Montmorency variety, or a small glass of unsweetened Tart cherry juice 30 to 60 minutes before bed. A half cup of blueberries as a simple bedtime snack. A half cup of strawberries, one of the lowest potassium fruits available, suitable across most stages of kidney-conscious eating. 1 medium apple, peel on, for fiber and blood sugar support. A small handful of red or purple grapes, frozen if you're managing fluid intake. A half cup of raspberries for fiber and gut-supportive benefits. A half cup of fresh pineapple, not canned, for its natural anti-inflammatory enzyme. And unsweetened cranberries a couple of times a week for modest urinary tract support, with a quick check with your pharmacist first if you're on a blood thinner. A simple way to start. Build tonight's bowl with just the first 3, tart cherries, blueberries, and strawberries, and introduce the rest one at a time over the following week so you can notice how your own body responds. If you're going to build that bedtime bowl tonight, tell me in the comments which 3 fruits you're starting with. I'll be reading through them. And if this kind of clear, well-grounded health information is what you're looking for, go ahead and subscribe. I'm Dr. Josephine, and here on Dr. Josephine Healthcare, we cover exactly this kind of practical, everyday guidance for living well and aging with confidence. New videos every week. Next time, we're looking at 5 everyday drinks that quietly work against your kidneys over time, including one that's marketed specifically as a health drink. I'll see you there.